Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets with Karl Bryan. If you want to attract new high-end coaching clients, fill live events, and build a wildly profitable coaching practice where business owners pay, stay, and refer, you've come to the right place. In this podcast, Karl provides his keys to the kingdom for finding and signing high-paying clients and building the coaching business of your dreams. Here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, coaches around the world, welcome to another episode of Business Coaching Secrets. It's your boy, the Road Dog, with none other than the King of the Caribbean, the King of the Cold Plunge, Karl Bryan. I'm not sure King of the Cold Plunge is appropriate, but we're going to work with that today. How do you feel about that?
Road, I feel good, bud. I was up at 4:30 this morning, 6:30. I was in the cold plunge, and as I told you earlier on our pre-show, cold plunge, and then the hot tub, and then the cold plunge and the hot tub, and I did that. I don't even know how many times, to be honest with you, but I'm going to guess 4, maybe 5. Feeling good, shoots. I think everybody should do it. And the biggest thing is just the mental. I've done that, frankly, 100 times. But that being said, I'd be exaggerating, I don't know, lying, but exaggerating to say that I don't stand there and have to G myself up a tiny bit that first time, right? After the first time, you're laughing. But it's the mental toughness of it, just to go, the water's freezing. And I mean, this water was freezing. And you know what I mean? You just jump in. It makes you feel good. And the other thing, Road Dog, which a lot of people know, you know this, we were talking to John earlier, it is impossible for you to jump into a cold plunge and then get out and not feel, and again, this is a scientific thing, but you know what I mean? Like, it is impossible for you to jump into a cold plunge, get out, and not feel positive. It's impossible. So there you go.
You know what's crazy is you almost had a Freudian slip there and said a gold plunge. I'm thinking of like Scrooge McDuck. You're just sort of dipping yourself in dollar bills, or what's happening?
Maybe or maybe not. Shoots afterwards.
Oh my God. That's a whole different type of video that I definitely don't need any part of. Anyways, yeah, cold plunge. I'm guessing it's a lot easier when it's like 25 degrees Celsius outside and not hovering right around. Well, I guess it's not that cold. Like, it's December the 11th as we're recording this right now, and in Kelowna, it's probably around 3 degrees. But we did get snow the other day, Shoots. We got a good amount of snow on Sunday. And but it is melting, which is still pretty wild that we're this close to Christmas, and there's really hardly any winter to speak of yet. And I know by me saying that, I just jinxed it for everybody. So you're welcome.
I was going to say that it's coming tonight, Shoots. Whoopsie.
For sure. My drive to my Vernon event on Wednesday will be brutal.
Yeah, there you go. I mean,
anyway,
like a ski hill.
So
anyway. But hey, so I want to say something. So first of all, I'm still in the middle of, the interview series, but Road Dog and I had so much fun last week mucking about. Hopefully you guys listened. If you didn't, I think you should. Lots of positive feedback, but we're like, we got to do this and having a hoot. But I haven't even told you this, Road Dog. So I've got a buddy. He's actually staying at my house right now. So when I say a buddy, guys, they're 23 years old, by the way. But he's a cool guy, and he's actually a world champion wake surfer, won the world title. But anyway, so we were talking. He's going to help me with some social media stuff. He's got a video with 30 million downloads. It's got Drake scooting by, but he's pretty prolific on the old social media. But anyway, so he told me, I want to listen to the podcast. Like, what's the deal? I sent it to him, and he goes, oh my God. He goes, I've listened to this. And then he's got a buddy who's like a huge fan, and like is like mentioning it and sending him over to him. And I'm like, no way. So Shoots, there you go, man. So that made me laugh. I thought that would make you smile. So that's it.
There's a lot of podcasts out there, just saying. So that's pretty nice to hear. That's for sure.
Shoots.
Wow. Okay. We'll take it, right? We'll take it. All right. Speaking of, this is a horrible segue. Speaking of taking it, that's awkward. Let's talk about taking advice. Yeah, and maybe, we've talked about coach, mentor. What's the other one I'm thinking of right now? Anyway, so you've got a mentor, which I'm not sure if everybody knows that. But you do, and you've been working with this gentleman for, how long has it been now, Carl? Has it been over a year?
Oh yeah. I've been over 2 years, in fact. But yes, he's a champ, man.
Crazy.
He's a champ.
That's crazy. And you actually seeked this individual out and made a proactive effort, if I recall correctly. So, anyways, you had a call with your mentor this last weekend. Because I know who it is. I'm not sure if you want to share that or not. That's cool, but I follow this person on the socials as well and read a bunch of his stuff. But just wondering, how'd that go? Like, what did you learn, and what were your big takeaways?
You mean from the call? I mentioned that call to you. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. What would I say? Concentrate on what you're doing, not what they're doing. That would be a highlight, and frankly, that's a note that I read about an hour and a half ago. Winners concentrate on winning, and losers concentrate on winners. I think that kind of goes. But just make sure, just concentrate on what you're doing. Don't worry about everybody else. We used to keep up with I can't remember who said this, but somebody said this, and I'm like, oh my god, it's so good. But we used to be keeping up with the Joneses, and now we're keeping up with the Kardashians. And it's just, you flip through Facebook to do, and it's hard not to just, it's just a funky place. Anyway, so it's, and it also, what would I say? Not the size of your brain. It's the size of your thinking. Again, are you thinking a week out? Are you thinking a month out? Are you thinking a year out? Are you thinking 5 years out? Are you thinking 25 years out is what I mean by that. And by the way, are you thinking in millions? Are you thinking in tens of millions? Are you thinking in billions? And as I say that, be sure I'm not, if you're trying to get to $10,000 a month, please don't start thinking in billions. My heavens. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just, that will get you, I don't know that it'll get you nowhere, but it's not going to get you where you want to go. There's going to be quicker roads to knock over what it is that, you're looking to do. Look, we've said this hundreds of times, and I'll continue to say it hundreds of times, but your best mentor is you. Your best client is you 5 years ago, and your best mentor is you in 5 years, right? Like trying to chase, like, what is it? Like they have what you want, and you're trying to get there. So again, in your best client, just look in the mirror, rewind 5 years, and you're staring at them. So therefore, again, if you're trying to get to 10 grand a month, 15 grand a month, and to think that listening to billionaires, and it's not that you don't listen to billionaires, but what it is that, again, as you're setting your goals and that sort of thing, be a little bit careful with that. Oh, again, size of your brain, not the size of your thinking, and it's a competitive world. There's just lots and lots of talk about competition and just too much. And I really think it is something you have to set aside. Again, winners concentrate on winning, losers concentrate on winners. My question is, because that sounds like a little bit of a throwaway line, or again, that's been around for years and years and years, right? I'm not making that up by any stretch of the imagination, but go in between your own ears and look at what you've done over the last day, last week, last month, last quarter, last year. And how much, like, again, are you, again, Joneses versus the Kardashians, envy, spending too much on spending too much time on Facebook. And then whilst you're on Facebook, again, are you looking at those competitors and getting a little bit frustrated? So I don't know, there's a question, but I will tell you also this, your customer, and this sounds obvious, but you actually mentioned this a little bit last week. Your customer must love, and capitalize love, bold it, italicize it, underline it, love your product. Right? The difference between 4-star and 5-star for, the dentist, the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, the restaurant, the hotel, or your product or your coaching, like 4 to 5, the math says it's 20%, but it's monumentally different than that. It has nothing to do 4-star to 5-star. If you've ever stayed in a 5-star hotel, it is not 20% better than the 4-star. It is a different experience entirely. And then I would So Road Dog, what I was but you're never going to speak to somebody generally that has like a successful business, quote unquote, that won't tell you their product is amazing, right? But when asked what they're tracking, um, you won't be able to get metrics. And by the way, Alex Hormozy, he talks about this a lot, and he would not, that I think he's made this kind of cool again, let's say, or a cool period. But I will tell you that there's a lot of people talking about this sort of stuff, and the most famous of by a long way is Steve Jobs, right? So he will always say, if you want to build a great company, build a great product. Or if you want to build a great company, build great products, right? Like that's Steve Jobs 101. So understanding the metrics around marketing, CPM, CPC, click-through rate, et cetera, like those are marketing type numbers. But what, like, churn, are they following, legitimately keeping, churn at the forefront, customer retention, cost, CRC, CHS, et cetera. So, they are not, okay, so those are statistics around product, usage of the product, happiness around the product. Generally, people will know, and you know this better, right, than I, Road Dog. Everybody knows their marketing numbers, but do they know their, you know what I mean? Do they have statistics and whatnot? And are they looking hard straight at, um, are they looking hard straight at product and product numbers? And the answer normally is no. So that's my answer, Shoots. And that's,
So speaking of that,
but that's what I'd say.
if I can jump in for a second, because you just threw a couple things out there, like CHS. Can you just explain to everybody what CHS is?
Yeah, customer health score. I think it actually there's another word, but customer health score. Look, it's success. It's a measure of customer success. And yeah, you'd measure like, okay, frequency. How much time are your users spending on your product, software, or thing, right? Breadth. How many users in a specific account are using the product? And then there would be depth. How many of your products, services, key features are actually, when I say actually being used, right? Time on time on Facebook, right? Facebook group metrics, or maybe like a private school. My daughter goes to a private school. How many kids in each class, right? So I think my daughter has 14 kids in her class, and I think that the average class in an average school has got like 30 people. So there's literally 50%. And by the way, if you went to her school and you signed up, they actually put you in a grade below or a grade above. You won't be able to go into her class because her class is full. And I know for a fact that kids get knocked back because they go to, like, there's another school where they go and they're all trying to get in, right? Like, again, that would be an example, you know what I mean, of like metrics you could be looking at. Or you got a sports team, how many kids are playing in a particular age group, right? And if you know anything about sport, the kids what happens between the age of 16 and 20, all the kids fall off. And then if you have a sport, by the way, where you can maintain kids through those years of 16 to 20, you're on to something. That's an example of a positive customer health score, right? Actually, there's another stat that I love, and that's TTV. It measures how quickly customers get value for your services / product, right? So it's time to value, by the way, TTV. The time is typically from the initial action by them, right, the customer, till the moment they gain value from your product. Like, for example, let's say a customer buys your software online and can immediately log in and use it. Then how much time to set it up, right? So you can, like, we're in the process right now of reimagining our entire onboarding process for this exact reason, right? Because again, did a little bit of reverse engineering of some numbers, and we're in the process of completely. In fact, we did this a year ago. And again, what we're actually doing is it's not that we're undoing it, but we are going back and again looking at these types of statistics, right, and TTV specifically, and we're like, look, now how quickly and we're doing local legends, as you know, we have a program where they're having local live events. We started that off, and it was 6 weeks between starting and then having their first event. Guess what? We've got that down definitely to 3. It might be 4, but it might, the goal is to have it to 3. So they sign up, they start within 3 weeks, they're doing their own event. How did we do that? It's a total, like it's a group-based program. We get together 3 times a week. It's pretty intensive, but we changed a lot of the initial training to video, right? So you could go and do like 7 hours of training on how to do local live events via video before event one, and you could just go and like literally, like do it between midnight and 7 a.m. if you so choose, right? So anyway, I think that's pretty obvious. If you had a personal trainer, how long until they lose a single pound? If you're a business coach, how long until your client gets tangible, and I mean tangible value from your relationship? And by the way, a really good way of doing that, you've probably heard us talk about this in the past, go to their expenses, go to their credit card statements, shave off some expenses they don't need, or go immediately to their pricing and just add 5%, which generally nobody's going to notice. You don't necessarily do it for all of the existing clients, but for all new clients, they pay an extra 5%, and very seldom is there an issue. If you just separate those two things, lessen if they have 10% net margins, which is a pretty good chance they're close. Well, if you raise their prices by 5 and then lower their expenses by 5%, you just under doubled the profitability of that client, right? You get that? You got 10% net margins. You increase their prices by 5%. You decrease their expenses by 5%, and you basically double their profitability, just a hair under. So anyway, so that's it. And of course, like we built profit acceleration software where we can find any business owner 100 grand in 45 minutes without them spending an extra dollar on marketing or advertising. Really think about that. That's an unbelievable upfront offer so that the client can get massive value before they start with before starting with our client, the business coach, right? Road Dog, before throwing it back to you, I want to also see, here's a mistake. I know this is unrelated or related, but okay, so getting a referral. At the end of the day, if you get 2 referrals from every client, you triple the size of your company. If your client gets 2 referrals from every client, they triple the size of their company, right? Well, so guess what? Go get more referrals. The mistake that they make is that they go, okay, well, they're going to systematize it, right? And again, systems set you free, but they also stifle creativity. Conversation for another day, possibly. But again, if you're hiring 16-year-olds, look, McDonald's is great, systematized to your heart's content. But if you have a real company paying people real fees, you want to hire intelligent people, smarter than yourself, with skills, and then get out of their way. That being said, instead of trying to get the referral on call 3, what you really want to do is like at an inflection point, right, of success. So they just found $10,000 doing XYZ. They just went to their expenses, they went to their credit card statements, and they cut out X amount of expenses. And when you extrapolated the numbers out, you're like, look, we just found you $75,000. Like, I am officially free. You're only paying me, 36 grand for the year. You basically just doubled your investment in me. Congratulations. We're only on month 3 and I am free for the rest of the year. Right? Like those types of conversations. But the bottom line is that trying to get a referral on call 3 or at a specific time, what you want to do is you want to do it when you have success. Right? Like, again, it's a completely different frame, but it takes somebody talented, intelligent, and to be able to realize when that point is and then be comfortable asking. Right? Otherwise it won't work. And that's where I mean, like, it's one thing to systematize it like you do for a 16-year-old at McDonald's. It's a whole nother thing to have a professional to understand now's the time and ask and get it and be able to follow through on it. So anyways, that's the answer. Where do we start? CHS? Yeah, customer health score is the answer. And again, everybody should be thinking about that, right, Road Dog? It's not just about marketing and getting new clients. You got to get clients and keep clients, and keeping clients is significantly more important than getting them. Like, if you never lost a client, you'd never have to go get a new one, right? So that's my answer, Shoots. What do you think?
Yeah, if I can just add to that, Karl, too, I think one of the biggest things, like one thing that I do for my clients is I call it testimonial mapping, and that is just what are all the points of success that happen within the client journey. Like it's almost as if we're conditioned to either just ask continuously for referrals at every single meeting, or just ask for it once and you're sort of done. but rather look at the success points of like where are they having a big win, and or where are they then breaking through a certain threshold, or maybe it's a profitability number, maybe it's a recurring revenue number, whatever that number is, and not just asking for the referral, because that's key. Get them where they're excited, but capture that testimonial on video, because again, if you do it on video, now you can use the audio, you can use it, the transcription of it, you can break it down into whatever, and especially on the onboarding process, I think it's just so key where you can then play that video of, somebody saying, I was hesitating, but boy, am I glad I made that leap, because wow, this just happened. You're going to get so many more conversions as a result of that. And I just think that that's a bit of an oversight that people typically have. And then one more thing that I found interesting, and this is actually a coaching program I was a part of, Karl. I thought this was fascinating. So he did it based on income levels, like so based on a monthly recurring revenue target. This is for more for like digital marketers, and then he'd have, like, let's say you hit 10K. Well, he'd actually have people that recently done that do calls for the people that are trying to get that. And it was almost like a giving back in a way, but it was rewarding. And then maybe it was 20 or 25K, the next threshold, right? I just thought that was a really cool setup that he did for you to be able to, wow, I just did that. Now I get to help other people achieve that, which then echoes and furthers that excitement. Anyways, I just thought that was kind of cool. What are your thoughts on something like that?
Oh, 100%. And again, what you're talking about is like wisdom, is that like you've lived it, so you understand it. You know what I mean? And like conceptually, it's one thing to put out there and so, oh, okay, so do X, Y, Z, and it's a whole nother thing to like a lived it. Like, I'll give you an example. Actually, this was from a call on the weekend with Mentor, right? And I was like, because it's one thing, like you see all these testimonials you mentioned, right? And then when are people most excited? And it would be at the beginning, correct? And I'm like, show me your testimonials in 12 months, 2 years, 3 years. Like, we've got clients like, in fact, John Moore, who we just talked to on the pre-show, he's been a client for, I think it's 12 years, right? He would have said on the interview that I did with him a while ago. Like, when you've got people that have stuck around for 12 years, this is when you can kind of, you know what I mean? Like, you're doing something good, I would dare say. When you have a client for a month, right, and they give you this glowing testimonial, look, that's great, right? But I want to see the testimonial in 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 2 years, 2.5 years. You know what I mean? And that, again, comes back to your point where, like, it's one thing, people are easily fooled. Good, I don't know if that's, you know what I mean? It's good and bad, right? But more bad than good. But you know what I mean? Like, testimonials that are like for a client after 30 days are one thing, but show me a client after 2 years. And now this is cool. Or like another conversation I had recently, like I've been making payroll for, I don't know, 20 years, like real payroll, right? Like my payroll is, very impressive, well into 6 figures monthly. And like, okay, so like I make payroll. It's the thing, I don't know how to position this, right? But like when you pay somebody, they generally will think you're a great person, right? And again, and some do, some don't, all good. But let me tell you, clearly we could say that there's factors working in your favor when you're paying them on a monthly basis. But I'm like, when people love you and they pay you, like this is a different level entirely, right? Like, again, so show me, like, you know what I mean? Like, that's awesome, man, that, you got these staff, but how long have your staff been with you? A lot of my staff, like my bookkeeper is like my right arm, who, her right road Doug. She's been with me for 12 years. She's literally been my right arm for 12 years, right? Anyway, so just coming back to a little bit of wisdom, right? And that's what you're talking about, and I love it, and that's the biggest thing that I took away from it. So there you go.
And by the way, I thought your bookkeeper was Snuffleupagus for the longest time. I seriously thought it was just you in high heels replying under a different email address. But that's another story for another time. Hey, listen, we're talking about success and all that sort of stuff and planning and whatever. We are, as we're recording this, coming up on the end of the year, which is everyone's favorite time of the year to start planning out the following year. And there's a lot of people planning out their 2024. And there's a lot of people reflecting back on their 2023 and realizing that perhaps they didn't accomplish and achieve everything that they really wanted to or whatever. And again, that's fine. As one of my coaches used to always say, everything behind you is dry cement and everything ahead of you is still wet cement. So you can actually, make an impression in the future when you can't on your past. But when this just reminds me, a while ago we had this conversation, and I love it because it's the 4 forces that motivate someone. And I just think by maybe incorporating this into your goal setting, right? You're setting up your targets for next year, understanding what actually motivates you, I think can be a superpower. And to put it in Karl Bryan terms, it's going to be a superpower on steroids. So, KB, why don't you lead us through the 4 forces that motivate someone, and hopefully it'll help them in terms of having great success in 2024.
I remember when we did this originally, and do you remember what was yours? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was freedom.
On steroids. Was that a bit about because I thought that was that impactful for you? Could you remember back? And maybe it wasn't.
It was because it was because 100% it was. I can't even put it into words. It was just, yes, 100%.
Yeah, I love it. So, and I remember that was kind of cool. But anyway, so 4 forces per se. Case there is money. Gosh, brain fart. Status. There's that. So the money, there's status, and of course there's freedom, which is road dogs, and my wife's, by the way. And then there's relationships, right? And there is not right and there is not wrong. Very, very importantly, right? So if money drives you, and depending upon your age and where you're at, and some factors that your parents would have helped you with accidentally or intentionally or positively or negatively, it just there is no right or wrong, right? And then most people will go through. So there's money, status, freedom, and then relationships. And most people will feel that there's a couple that look, I think I'm freedom and status, or I'm money and relation. You know what I mean? They feel like they have 2, but here's how you work out which one is the one that drives you. And again, much like Road Dog just said a minute ago, it was really impactful for him to work it out. Because then it's oh, wow, okay, cool. You know what I mean? What I really want to be able to do is what I want to do when I want to do it. He wants to go on a holiday when he wants to go on a holiday, and he wants to go where he wants to go on holiday when he wants to go on holiday. And he wants to be able to do calls when he wants to do calls. But I'll tell you one thing I know about Road Dog, he doesn't want to be a slave to his calendar. That being said, he's also a very driven individual. So we don't need to look at his calendar to know that there's some action on it, but it does not drive what he does. The one thing Road Dog, and if you follow him on Facebook, there's one thing he is not doing, and it is not missing gym. He's not missing gym day. He's not missing lifting weights on a given day. And it might be when he's running and training for a marathon or whatever the case may be. And that, by the way, is how he would define freedom. You might be driven by freedom, and then you would define it differently. Your client might be driven by freedom, but again, they would define it a little bit differently than Road Dog would, or I might, or my wife would, right? But anyway, so you feel like there's a good chance there's 2 that you feel are tied, and you struggle to say that there is one. And the way that you work out is if I took one away, it would drive you batty. You'd go nuts without it, right? And by the way, mastery might be a better way of saying status. Status could be, I don't know. There might be some folks that hear status and then not, love that. But there's nothing wrong with wanting to be the best, right? So think of status as mastery. And I will tell you that in my own world, I have a pretty insatiable drive to be the best when I'm doing something. I'm hyper competitive, good, bad, indifferent. You watch Michael Jordan, The Last Dance, which I thought was absolutely spectacular. You will see, and like I said, that guy. Now in fact, you know what? I'm I'm like beer leaguer compared to clearly, right? But like Michael Jordan's level of competitiveness is debatably unhealthy. But anyway, but I am a competitive person. Anybody close to me would tell you that. But there's different levels of that, and that's okay. Like when I go play beer league hockey, I want to score the winning goal, and that's that. And I go surfing pretty much every day. I jumped on that surfboard. Believe me, I have zero interest in not being. It's actually an e-foil, if you guys know what that is. But at the end of the day, um, when I'm surfing, I want to be good at it. And by the way, guess what? I don't go out once in a while. I mean, I go out every day, and then I recharge the battery, and then I'm back out, a second time that day. And bottom line is, I have an insatiable drive. I don't know to be the best. I don't plan on competing in, e-foil. Or I also have a jet surf, by the way, which is even cooler. But you need very flat water for that. But at the end of the day, so who cares about me? Um, you, what is it that you have driving you, right? Like, in business coaching, hopefully not a surprise, but I am looking to, well and truly be a leader of the business coaching profession. I've been at it for 17 years. So I might be 18 now. But it's been a long, long time, close to a couple of decades. So again, business coaching software, like it never existed before we created it. We developed profit acceleration software, digital acceleration software, then group coaching software, the profit acceleration simulator. We've integrated AI into the software. Mental acceleration software is something that's come. The integration of AI took over any plans to move towards mental acceleration, but that's kind of been back on my brain, to be honest with you. But again, and it just all comes from, I don't know, I just want to, when people use the software, I want them to crush it, but I really want them to, to look at the software and have it really move them, really influence them, really positively align them with their client, really positively, create a dynamic where they can kick some, with their client. So anyways, and and what does not, come with developing that software, which believe me, can be less than pretty on any given day. It'd be crazy to tell you anything different. But you won't be remembered for what you do. You'll be remembered for what you refuse to give up on. And I'm just good with the price that comes with it, good, bad, and indifferent. So that being said, what is driving you, right? Again, money, status, freedom, relationships. I understand that status/mastery is something that really, really drives me. So by knowing that, guess what? I can align, you know what I mean? It just like with Road Dog, he is driven by freedom. And again, my wife is driven by freedom. Um, and you know what I mean? When he understands that, so all he has to do is define what freedom means to me. I define what status means to me. You define what relationships mean to you. And then again, I think that, and money, by the way, because again, most people, I want to be worth, $100 million. I want to be build $1 billion this, $1 billion that, $1 trillion, blah, 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 blah. Well, I don't know. Define what is the real amount of money. And by the way, once you come up with a number, and let's just call 25 million for the sake of the argument, reverse engineer what it is that you would then do once you accomplish that money. And what you're going to find, really good news, is you need a lot less of it than you realize, right? A lot. Nobody needs $25 million to live a great life and have the freedom that they choose. I can tell you that. That being said, what, actually, I shouldn't say that, because maybe somebody, they got, a yacht fetish and they got to have, the latest Lambo every single year to do and live that kind of lifestyle. Maybe 25 million is not going to get it done, but probably do all right. But the bottom line is, define what it is that you want, like status. Define what status is to you, and then you're going to find that there's a significantly lesser amount of status required in order for you to achieve your status goal. But if you don't define it and you don't provide yourself a little bit of a measuring stick, you're going to find that you're going to chase some ghost, and that can be non-fun place. And on that note, I can tell you that you're talking to a guy who had a mentor who told him he was chasing a ghost, and that ghost would be named by my brother, who committed suicide when I was 16 years old. And that is something that I have been chasing. And unfortunately, once I realized that there was no amount of, you know what I mean? There was no car that was going to be cool enough. There was no house that was going to be big enough to do. And then but by defining it and realizing it, oh my God, it was the greatest load off of all time that I realized I was just chasing something that I was never actually going to be able to achieve. And that was tough, and it was weight on my shoulders. I say that for you in that you might, that freedom. What is, I told you, like, Road Dog, you are driven by freedom. But again, I don't need to look at your calendar to know that you got plenty of things going on. So is that to say that you don't have freedom? No, it's that you understand that there's a price for that freedom. And if that's a few scheduled calls and some group calls and to do, you're more than happy to do it. But what you're not interested in doing, or, you can answer this for us, but like having 12 hours of scheduled calls every single day and then not having a week off, 2 weeks off, time in the summer, time to go. And your daughter Ava, is an elite soccer player, not being able to go and watch her play and go to the tournaments, you wouldn't be interested in that, right? So anyways, I think that like, let's go to maybe I'm thinking some of the big dogs that you could kind of, Gary V, right? Like his Northern Star is very different than mine, right? Like he flies around the world and refuses to stop. And Tony Robbins, he's got that same thing going on. And by the way, like I wrote this in an email, something to the effect of the greatest addiction is next. More, 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 more. And you all know that guy. And, and debatably, I don't know, never asked Tony Robbins this, but again, I think that he might tell you that, the next, more thing has, not been his greatest trait by way of enjoying. Because at the end of the day, what's the goal? And the goal is to enjoy life, right? Whether you're driven by money, you're driven by status, you're driven by freedom, you're driven by relationships, or by the way, very importantly, your clients are driven by which of the four. And again, you go a long way in finding this out. Um, Incredibly valuable to be able to help them go and achieve what it is that they're looking to accomplish, right? So anyways, that's it, Road Dog. It can be hard work, but again, define what it is that you want. And again, no, before you define it, you need to know what it is, right? So again, if that one thing, and again, the thing that I took away would be the thing that would drive you nuts. That's the big one. So, what is that? Make your goal to influence, not to be an influencer, is what I would say, right? Make your goal to influence, not to be known as an influencer. You understand, like, the difference? You know what I mean? And make your job about the client and their results instead of your results in your bank account. And I'm not suggesting that you're not, and I'm not suggesting you are. I'm just suggesting that I think that is a way better goal, is to be influential and to have influenced, than to be known as an influencer. And again, the stupid Lamborghini with the doors up and all that. Like, please. But anyway, so, again, make your goal to be Santa, not the Grinch. Santa gives away, right? Grinch taketh away. Give, 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 give. It's always funner at Christmas to give than to receive, right? Well, the good news in business is you give, give, give. It's the rule of reciprocity, right? And then, exercise it in your favor. And again, freedom, money, status, relationships, the one that you crave, you'll get significantly closer to it, right? The rule of, why do live events work? 3 words: rule of reciprocity. That's it. You're doing something wonderful. You do a great job. They see you up there. They see you being vulnerable. And what do you think? They like, oh wow, you know what I mean? Like, look, I'll get together with this individual if he's willing to do this for free and feed me breakfast. To do. Why in the world would I not sit with this guy for 2 hours when he works on my business with himself, and the software and the simulator, whatever the case may be? If you're using our stuff, you're using the software and the simulator. If you're using your own stuff, you might be using a napkin, whatever you're using. But that rule of reciprocity will kick in. So shoots. I don't. That's my. What do you think? Like I said, What would you answer to that? How did I do?
Well, it's like the thing that's crazy is I've always been asked, and it's a tough question, what do you want? Because again, as you and I both know, you ask somebody what they want, they'll tell you what they don't want. But what I got out of this, Carl, was it's not just what you want. So for me, it's like, yeah, what do you want? Well, I want freedom. Well, what does that look like to you? Right? Like getting very, very clear on not just what it is that you want, but what does it actually look like? And I think that lack of clarity between those 2 points can lead to a whole lot of almost stagnation. Like you're just not going to go anywhere, right? So I think
Straight.
that's really, really interesting because you talk about the success and you talk like, like you mentioned the soccer thing for my daughter. Like, yeah, no kidding. Like I'll give up a lot to be there because I love it. Like I absolutely love it, right? It's killing me not coaching this year, but like I still need to be on the sideline. I'm still, doing whatever I can. But it's just what does that look like? And I think that's a very,
So
very important part.
I want to give you an example. What would it take to stop you from going to that soccer tournament, that soccer game, that soccer tournament? Is there anything that could get in within reason?
No, no.
Okay,
no.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is freedom, right? That's his, but again, that's Road Dog's picture of and by the way, great father, this, that, and the other. But I'm telling you, that's freedom because we all know that there's a guy or a gal listening and they miss all kinds of baseball practice, softball practice, football games, because they're driven by something else. To understand that, right? So that Road Dog defines freedom as being able to go to that soccer tournament. And I said to him, what would stop you? And he pretty much, look again, and there, you know what I mean? No doubt there's some, like, you know what I mean? Like there would be something that would get in the way, right? Like, his health, you know what I mean? Like you kind of follow, but at the end of the day, it would have to be monumental in terms of stopping him. And that again, because he defines freedom as being able to be there. And he knows that those days are not going to last forever. So anyway, so there's an example. But believe me, and as you hear that, you're like, oh my gosh, well, of course, so would I. Okay, well, guess what? You're probably driven by freedom. And by the way, and it might be the fact because you're the president of the club, or you were the coach of the club, or your kid's the best player. So then there's a status play that gets you there more than the freedom play, by the way. But anyway, so you reverse engineer all that stuff. It can get kind of cool. But that's, and by the way, Road Dog, before, would you agree that going to that soccer tournament, that soccer game, is the kind of thing that you define as freedom? Am I right there? Make sure I'm right.
Sure. 100%. Yep, for sure. I love doing it, and nothing's going to get in my way of getting there. And I just want to say real quick, I want to say because you say money and status as well, there's no shame in that. Like, because some people like, oh, I can't possibly be driven by money. Like, can you just touch on that for a sec? Because I think there's a lot of people that might feel guilty or have shame around that.
At the end of the day, you know what I mean? Like it's because Road Dog, little red arrow, you are here. If I have somebody here is driven by money, what you're going to find is that they are going to be young or they are going to be old generally. And that is black and white to something that is gray. But when you're super young, you're super driven by money. And when you have the wrong birthday with a 0 or a 5 and you don't feel you're in the right spot, all of a sudden, money becomes a driving force. But understanding that it is, because different seasons of your life, different times, guess what? Generally speaking, you will be driven by one for, the majority of your quote unquote business life. But that being said, it can absolutely, because what happens? Like, what do you think happens to somebody when like my neighbor in Kelowna, right? Like the guy won 40, what did he win? $40 million tax free. Thank you very much. 40, and it might have been a little bit less than that. Might have been 25, might have been 40. It's enough money that it was life changing. Do you think you know what I mean? Like if he was driven by money, he is no longer driven by money, or I would dare say it. Do you know what I mean? So situations do change. So, but yeah, if money motivates you, man, that's okay. What I would say to somebody who is driven by money, by the way, is to accept it get yourself into a position so that you are no longer driven by money, because money is much like being driven by significance, which, by the way, is different from status, in my opinion. If you're driven by significance, nothing is ever good enough. There's not a Ferrari cool enough. There's not a Lamborghini cool enough. There's not a mansion that's high enough on the hill and tall enough and big enough for you. It's a real bastard of a way to live. So there you go. Shoots. That's my answer, bud.
Yeah, I love it. Love it. Hey, listen, I think that was that was fantastic, and I think that's probably, I'm going to go ahead and say that's your one thing right there. If you can identify which of those four is your ultimate driver, I just think like the moon is the in the future for you, sort of thing. So with that said, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Business Coaching Secrets with my man on top of the hill, or the king of the Caribbean, if you will, now, King Karl. And if you're not on the inside getting access to the pre-show, or you aren't getting Karl's daily emails, or just want more information on profit acceleration software, just how to build, grow, and scale your business coaching company, visit focused.com and subscribe today. Again, if you enjoyed the podcast, please share it. And of course, as always, you'd appreciate it if you'd rate it and leave a review as well, as we know that all the popular streaming services put a ton of weight towards that. And that is it for another week. We will see you in the next episode. Remember, folks, progress equals happiness.
Karl Bryan built Profit Acceleration Software 2.0. So as a business coach, you'll never again have to worry about working with business owners that can't afford your high-end coaching fees. Check us out at focused.com.